Why I never believed in numerology until now. 93% of people who calculate their life path number report experiencing at least one impossible coincidence related to their number within a month. These are what Carl Jung called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences suggesting a deeper order to our universe. As a data analyst, I dismissed numerology until my life path number 7 began appearing everywhere. Among the 27 synchronicities I documented was a job offer that completely changed my life trajectory. Even my analytical mind couldn't rationalize what was happening. Today, I'll reveal how these numerical patterns operate both scientifically and mystically, and why they've proven so powerful for even the most skeptical observers. Have you ever had a moment where a random conversation completely shifted your perspective? That's exactly what happened to me during the lowest point of my career. I still remember the weight of rejection letters piling up on my desk after being let go from my data analyst position at a tech startup. The company's strategic restructuring had left me questioning not just my career choice, but my entire life direction. With rent due and my savings dwindling, a suffocating sense of failure followed me everywhere. I reluctantly agreed to meet Maya, an old college friend, for coffee. I expected the usual awkward career questions and hollow reassurances. Instead, what happened that afternoon at Riverside Cafe would completely transform how I understood myself and the universe. "Your birthday is April 16th, 1987, right?" Maya asked suddenly, pulling out a small notebook while our lattes cooled. "Have you ever calculated your life path number?" I nearly rolled my eyes. As someone who'd spent years analyzing market trends and predicting consumer behavior through verifiable data sets, the mention of anything resembling mysticism usually triggered an immediate mental shutdown. "You know I don't buy into that stuff," I said with a dismissive wave. "If it can't be proven through statistical analysis, I'm not interested." Maya smiled patiently. "Humor me for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes of your analytical brain on something different." Maybe it was desperation or boredom, but I agreed. Maya walked me through the calculation, like peeling layers from an onion to reveal its core. You take your birth date and reduce each component to a single digit, then add those together. For my birth month, April is the 4th month. My birthday, 16, becomes 1 plus 6 equals 7. And my birth year, 1987, becomes 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 equals 25, which further reduces to 2 plus 5 equals 7. So that's 4 plus 7 equals 18, and 1 plus 8 equals 9, she calculated, then paused. "Wait, I made an error. Your life path is actually 7, IT. She showed me her corrected work, and the math checked out. Something about that number, 7, resonated strangely. I'd always been drawn to it without knowing why. "So, what does that actually mean?" I asked, skepticism softening into curiosity. Maya showed me a description of Life Path 7. As I read, chills ran down my spine. Analytical, introspective, truth-seeking, spiritual but skeptical. These weren't vague Barnum statements. They were specific traits I'd recognized in myself, but often downplayed to fit into corporate culture. "This system isn't just random," Maya explained. "It dates back to Pythagoras in ancient Greece, the same mathematician who revolutionized our understanding of triangles and harmonics. He believed numbers were the building blocks of reality." I found myself surprisingly intrigued. Pythagoras? The theorem guy from high school math? The very same. He created one of the first known systems of numerology, believing that mathematical patterns underlie all of existence. While my logical mind sought explanations, the accuracy of the description kept tugging at something deeper. It captured my perpetual questioning, my need for solitude, and my difficulty with authority figures who couldn't justify their decisions. "Look," I said finally, "it's an interesting framework, but I'm still not convinced it's anything more than clever pattern recognition." Maya just smiled. "That's such a Life Path 7 response. Just keep an eye out for the number 7 in the coming days." I laughed it off, but the next morning, something unusual happened. While scrolling through job listings, I noticed a research position at a small think tank. The address? 7 West Avenue. The salary? $70,000. And the application deadline? 7 days away. I applied immediately, more amused than anything. 3 hours later, I received a call for an interview scheduled at, you guessed it, 7 p.m. The interview at 7 p.m. marked the beginning of a transformation I wasn't prepared for. As I walked out of the building that evening, my analytical mind was already creating rational explanations for what had happened. Pure coincidence, I told myself. The human brain is designed to find patterns. It's how we've survived as a species. But what begins as coincidence transforms into something entirely different when it happens 7, 14, 21 times in a row. I decided to document these occurrences, treating them like any other dataset I'd analyze. My spreadsheet started simply: date, time, context, and significance rating. I expected the novelty to wear off within days. The frequency illusion, where you learn about something new and suddenly notice it everywhere, would eventually fade. But something unusual happened. The occurrences became more frequent and increasingly meaningful. When a 7th floor apartment became available in a building I'd been eyeing for months, the only unit open in the entire complex, I noted it. When exactly 7 new clients reached out to me in a single week for freelance data work, I added it to my growing dataset. During the interview I mentioned earlier, the hiring manager asked precisely 7 questions. I applied statistical probability to these events. The numbers defied explanation. The frequency substantially exceeded random probability. My spreadsheet grew more complex as I tracked secondary patterns: occurrences in multiples of 7, appearances in significant decisions, and even in addresses and phone numbers of important connections. Our brains are fundamentally wired to identify patterns, a crucial survival mechanism helping us make sense of our environment. Statistical probability, however, can only explain so much before the frequency of coincidences demands a different interpretation. During my research, I discovered Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity, the idea that meaningful coincidences reveal a connecting principle in the universe beyond random chance. Jung believed these events point to an underlying pattern beyond our perception. This concept resonated deeply with what I was experiencing. The evidence became compelling when I found literature about Life Path 7 individuals, people naturally drawn to careers involving research, analysis, and spiritual exploration. These sources described individuals who excel in academia, psychology, and professions demanding complex system understanding. I stood at exactly this career crossroads, torn between returning to data analytics or pursuing something that engaged my contemplative nature. These patterns began influencing my decision-making. When choosing between 2 job offers, I noticed one company had been founded 7 years ago. When selecting between graduate programs, one had exactly 7 core courses in its curriculum. The scientific explanation likely involves confirmation bias, our tendency to favor information confirming pre-existing beliefs. Once aware of my life path number, I might have filtered my experiences to notice instances supporting its significance. Yet this explanation couldn't fully account for the volume and specificity of these occurrences. The most profound realization came when I followed these numerical breadcrumbs toward opportunities I might have otherwise dismissed. I gravitated toward roles allowing deep analysis, independent research, and philosophical exploration, aligned with my natural strengths as a Life Path 7. A research fellowship emerged that required analyzing patterns in large datasets, but with humanitarian applications, combining technical skills with a deeper purpose. The position offered fewer initial benefits than other opportunities, but something about it felt right. I accepted the role and within months found myself more fulfilled professionally than ever before. Beyond my number. Discovering universal patterns. After finding such professional fulfillment, I couldn't help but wonder if these numerical patterns that had revealed so much about myself could unlock insights about the people closest to me. My scientist brain needed more evidence. Could numerology accurately describe the personalities and challenges of others? Or was I experiencing an elaborate form of confirmation bias? There was only one way to find out. I secretly began calculating the life path numbers of my family and closest friends. Using their birth dates, I followed the same reduction method I'd used for myself, careful not to reveal what I was doing. For each person, I wrote detailed descriptions based on numerological research, noting predicted personality traits, strengths, challenges, and life purposes. My mother emerged as a Life Path 6, nurturing, compassionate, and devoted to family. This described her perfectly. The woman who volunteered at every school event, ran the neighborhood watch, and somehow still found time to care for her aging parents. Her tendency to put everyone else first often came at the expense of her own needs. My brother's Life Path 8 revealed his ambitious, goal-oriented nature with natural leadership abilities. This explained his relentless drive since childhood, his 3 startups before 30, and how achievement frequently took precedence over personal relationships in his life. As for my best friend Melissa, a Life Path 3, her creative energy manifested in her graphic design career and ability to light up any room. Yet, I'd also recognized her struggles with focus and occasional anxiety, characteristic challenges of her number. As I began seeing these patterns in those closest to me, the validation came when I casually shared these personality profiles without mentioning numerology. I read this description and thought of you, I told each person. The responses were remarkable. My mother said, "It's like someone's been following me around." My skeptical brother admitted, "There's something to this, especially about struggling with work-life balance." Melissa's reaction touched me most deeply. Reading her description, she grew quiet before looking up with tears. I've always felt this creative energy inside, alongside this anxiety about not using it properly. I never realized these feelings could be connected to something deeper. As my experiment expanded, patterns emerged across different numbers. My colleague with a Life Path 1 embodied independent thinking and leadership. My neighbor, a Life Path 4, demonstrated practical, methodical reliability. My cousin with a Life Path 5 lived for adventure and freedom, constantly seeking new experiences. Understanding these numerical patterns became like an unseen roadmap, transforming my relationships by mapping inner identities onto real-life interactions. I'd always been frustrated by my brother's obsession with achievement, but now I could appreciate it as part of his authentic journey. Instead of wishing my mother would focus more on herself, I recognized her nurturing nature as her genuine expression. I stopped trying to get Melissa to be more organized and instead valued her creative spontaneity. This wasn't just about acceptance, it enabled meaningful support. When my brother seemed stressed about work, I reminded him of the importance of balance. When my mother gave too much, I created opportunities for her to receive care in return. Over time, numerology became a complementary tool alongside logical analysis in my life decisions. I wasn't abandoning critical thinking. I was expanding my definition of useful information, adding a dimension that pure logic sometimes missed, but that deepened my understanding of human complexity. Looking back on this journey, I've come to realize something profound. Numerology didn't predict my future. It illuminated what was already within me. The real magic wasn't in coincidences or synchronicities, but in how this ancient system provided a mirror for self-reflection I hadn't found elsewhere. Whether you approach numerology as cosmic truth or analytical framework, its value lies in the perspective it offers. This balance between critical thinking and openness leads to greater self-awareness without abandoning rational thought. My analytical mind needed this unexpected detour to recognize patterns I'd overlooked my entire life. The disconnection I once felt has transformed into clarity I never imagined possible. What hidden messages might your birth date hold?